Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where in the world you are, and of course, what time of day or night it is either. Welcome to the podcast Up on the Edge with Al and Owen. I'm your host, Alan Nield, Big Al, or just Al, whatever you want to call me. And each week, I'm going to be joined by regular co-host Owen Sherratt and other special guests along the way too. Right, let's get right into it. This is the podcast Up on the Edge.
Just, you're all right, mate.
Sugar tits, how are we?
I'm all right, matey.
Oh, hang on a minute. Let me just do that. This is going to be a good one today.
Oh, I hope so. So me internet and help.
Look at that name. Look at that name.
It's a legend.
Let me just get you on here. Hang on, wait a minute. Start again. Yes.
Oh, Boona.
Hey.
Boona.
How are we doing, matey?
Are you well?
Yeah, not bad. Hey, it's some fancy background you've got there.
Look at that.
Oh, it's just, I think we got it from IKEA. It's just like a curtain of lights, you know, like fairy lights, but on a net curtain sort of thing.
Yeah, very effective.
That's
right,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the backdrop at London Palladium.
My daughter used to have that at the back.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Your daughter had something similar, Al, yeah?
Yeah, she did, behind the bed in a bedroom, in her boudoir.
Yeah, it's all simple. It's smoke and mirrors, isn't it?
That's
but
it,
it's like IKEA, I think. I know the curtains are from IKEA. They're them cheap net curtains you can get from IKEA. They're about £3 each.
You're not supposed to say that, mate. You're supposed to, like, this is from housing units of Hollingwood, this, mate. You had to fly there in the helicopter to get it.
That's right, yeah. I should big myself up a bit more, shouldn't I?
That's the one.
This is all from Starlight Bedrooms.
Right, now where's Starlight? Is that an actual place?
Yeah, no, it's true.
Is it true?
Value for money, yeah. Billy stuff. You can't see what's in him.
You don't do that, do you?
What do we say about this legend hero? Musician,
yeah.
DJ, radio presenter,
broadcaster extraordinaire, I believe the word is.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Do you put yourself down as a Reitner or an Oldham or a Shaw Garby? Or...
Still an Oldham. I use Oldham as where I'm from. Even though I live in Stockport now, obviously, but I'm still, Oldham. And then if I'm talking to somebody from Oldham, I'll be more specific. You know, 'cause I was born in Woodfield Maternity Home in Worneth. Worneth. And then grew up in Shaw, Linney Lane, till I was about 4 or 5, 1964. We moved to A-side, to a corner shop. And that took me through into the 70s. And then from A-side, I eventually, when I became a pop star, I moved to Milnrow.
Milnrow. All the good pop stars go to Milnrow. I don't know why, do they?
There was actually a couple of others. There was one of the guys out the Icicle Works ended up in Milnrow as well for some strange reason.
Which one?
Not Ian McNabb. I've got a feeling he was the keyboard player, and I can't remember his name. So
the reason I ask, I used to play in a band called Lip Service, and I
remember that.
Right. Well, there you go. Yeah. And the trumpet player. Thanks for that.
Did you do that? Did you?
I got it.
Did you do it? Did
it
go
again?
Yeet.
The trumpet player used to play with the Icicle Works as well. And he's a short lad born and bred.
Oh, okay. I bet there was probably a connection with the lad in Milnrow then. I bet they were mates, weren't they?
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
So I've got to ask you about your mum. First off, we've got to start with your mum. She's a bit of a legend, isn't she?
Yeah.
And I was telling Owen earlier on that there was a stage where every time I went sort of hosting an event for a radio station, or I was doing an outside broadcast for a radio station, or something like that, I'd look out into the crowd. Your mum with her grinning at me like a Cheshire cat.
Yeah.
And do you know what? So I put a post on Facebook tonight saying, going to be interviewing Clint later on. Has anybody got any questions? So they're all asking these questions. Guess what? Your mum's answering them all.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah. She's a proper social media butterfly, isn't she?
Not wrong with that.
The backstory, I mean, my mum and dad they're always very supportive of my music career. You know, once I started hanging out in bands, and I think once they realised we were going places, they were always supportive.
Yeah.
But they weren't always in a position to come and see us, you know, as they got older, but particularly my dad, who's sadly no longer around. He passed away in 2011, but So in the later years, she wasn't able to come to anything.
Right.
You know, because she'd been caring for my dad, literally, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so that was one of the reasons why, you know, she wasn't on the circuit, on the gigging circuit, if you like, back then. But the other thing that, like, after my dad passed away, she got a lot of support from my Twitter followers, obviously sending condolences and loving. And it developed into friendships. You know, she went to meet some of these people. Some of these people would be picking up and going out to the local cafe, having a walk in the park. So she got thrown right into the social media world, particularly Twitter.
But that might be a good thing for her, though, because if that's a comfort blanket, then...
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's the greatest thing that could have happened to her because she'd been quite isolated, you know, for the last 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years of my dad's life, because he was, you know, he had ailments. He, you know, they had a really brilliant relationship where they just lived together in whichever house they were in at the time. They just completely existed for each other in a real beautiful way. But once he passed away, she just literally, like a butterfly, just flew off into this other world of, you know, socializing, whether it be, you know, face to face or online and that. But that's why, you know, as I've got more and more into that world myself, you know, whether it be through radio or through my music, through the Inspirals, whatever else, my mum's always there, you know, twittering away in the background.
Yeah. See, that's the good side of social media, isn't it? I mean, I know it gets a lot of bad press for all sorts of stuff, but that's the positive side of it.
That's the beautiful side. And that's the side of it that over the last 12 months, if we hadn't have had that, geez, I can't imagine what would have happened to some of these people, you know, people like myself even.
We've all gone back to writing letters, Clint.
Well, yeah, you know what, I encourage that, and it is a beautiful thing. And, you know, I've been a fan of, for years, I've been a fan of the actual tangible things that we used to have.
Yeah.
Me and my wife started doing tea parties back in 2006. I don't know if you remember this, Al, but we started a thing called Mrs. Boon's tea parties.
Yeah.
And it was like, it sounds ridiculous what I'm about to say, but this was baking cakes at home wasn't a big industry thing then. It was a really unusual, but it was something that older people did, making a cake, making some cupcakes. You know what I mean? And Charlie, my wife, she's brilliant in the kitchen. And she started baking cakes during one of the pregnancies that she had. She got really into this craving to bake. And we started doing these rock and roll tea parties on Saturdays in Manchester in 2006. So it'd be homemade cakes that my wife had made. I'd be playing actual records, vinyl records, on original 1960s record players, little dancettes. And we'd have a little play area for the kids where they could, you know, do crayons and all that. And then I'd invite some of my rock and roll friends to come and play acoustically, you know, on a Saturday afternoon in Manchester for a couple of quid to get in. And at the time, it was unique. There was nothing like it. But it was obvious then it was a success because it was people getting back in touch with how it used to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The homemade cake, the vinyl records, they're coming together on Saturday afternoon with adults and kids in Manchester city centre. Nobody was doing anything like it. You know what I mean? I remember
was that night and day, that?
We started at the coffee pot.
Oh, yeah, the cafe on the corner.
Then we moved to TV21.
Yeah.
Then we moved to the Ruby Lounge. So going up to bigger venues all the time. And it was phenomenal. By the time we stopped doing it, the demand for it was incredible. Because, I remember going into Dry Bar probably about 2004, 2005, one Saturday afternoon with one of my babies at the time and one of my toddlers. And the guy behind the bar saying, we children aren't allowed in, we can't serve you. And I'm like, I fucking built this place.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. But in me, I was in here the week it opened.
Yeah.
And anyway, but it sort of just really made me realise there's nothing to do with your kids that's a bit rock and roll on a Saturday afternoon in Manchester. And that's how partly why the tea parties came about. And ironically, when we stopped doing it, which was just over 10 years ago, was when we got pregnant. Me and Charlie got pregnant with our third child, Cassius, who's now 10. Part of the morning sickness side effects was that she couldn't stand the smell of cakes. And she was literally baking cakes.
That's the reason you stopped.
And it was spewing. It was literally spewing. I'm like, can't carry on.
You don't want it to go in the wrong bowl, would you? Sorry.
I ended up, there was a situation where people that went to tea parties, remember this, were, I think the last 2 tea parties we ever did, maybe 3, I did them without Charlie. And I was going to Costco to get the cakes. because we've got an amazing selection of cakes. And it's affordable.
they have.
I was very transparent. I was telling the fans, you know, the customers, Charlie's away against, can't do it this week. Costco have made the cakes for us, and you know, and it was a shame that we stopped when we did, because the trajectory that we were on, we were ready for writing. We had some book ideas that we were talking to publishers about, you know, to do with homemade cakes and to do with hormonal baking. And we were just really ahead of the game. Nobody else was doing anything like it. And it was like, it's sort of a shame that we weren't able to develop it.
The weird thing is, if you'd have had that now, you would still be able to deliver the baking and one thing and another, and hold big Zoom meetings, and everybody could get together. And do you know what? That kind of thing would absolutely ease lockdown immensely for a lot of people. Yeah,
it's still something that we can resurrect as and when we want to. You know, we've got our cellars full of, we've got hundreds of old China vintage teacups and saucers. I've got 7 vintage record players, you know, the old portable ones that you used to have under your bed in your bedroom.
I need one off you. I need one, Clint. Shall I tell you why I need one? I cursed a few minutes ago, and I'm really sorry for it, but fuck it. The reason being is I have 3 records to my name. That's it, right? I have U23, the first sort of EP they ever released. I have an original, less than a 1,000 sort of number-wise copy of the White Album by the Beatles, which is probably worth a fortune.
Wow.
And I have a record that I've never been able to play. I don't know what it is, but in the centre is the invitation to Clint Boon and Charlie's wedding back in however many years ago it was.
18 years, yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was good. That was what we did for that. We came up with the idea of the invite being a 7-inch record.
Yeah.
But the records were bought from charity shops. We just trawled around charity shops and bought shitloads of old scratch records. And we never played any of them. We just put labels on and sent them out. So you could have anything. It could be the Bee Gees, or it could be Piri Como, could be Shuadi Wadi. One day you'll find out. But these old record players, I wouldn't recommend you played your White Album on it, because the pilot's going to probably damage it or whatever, you know what I mean? But But yeah, I mean, the tea party, it's something that we could possibly resurrect, but, you know, we'll see. The thing we have done during lockdown that's exactly along the same lines as that was we started in week 1 of the first lockdown, late March last year. We started a thing called Disco Rescue on Friday nights, which is me and Charlie doing a live streamed request show from my home studio. And we do it over an app called BeatStream, which I've been helping to develop for like 5 or 6 years now. So I'm a partner in the company, I'm a director of it. And we've been building this thing ready for launch in March of last year. It's going to be launched with the Blossoms gig at the arena. And the idea of it is it's live, it's just music streaming, it's not video, it's just excellent quality audio. And the idea behind it is that if you've got an event like a gig, say you've got 20,000 people watching Blossoms at the arena, if you can't be at the gig because it's sold out, or you're in Japan, or you're in hospital, you can buy a digital ticket to listen in real time, you know, live.
Yeah.
And so Blossoms might say, right, you pay 30 quid to come and see us in the arena. That's now sold out. We're going to sell the digital ticket for 10 quid.
Yeah.
Right. So that it gives the band a lot more revenue. And it means that people around the world can be part of that event in the moment.
Doesn't matter where they are. Yeah. 5
or 6 years ago, this is where this started. I've been working on this. You know, it's like proper serendipity that when we went into the lockdown last year in March, and I saw 100 grand's worth of work taken out of my diary, all the DJ work just gone. But I was able immediately from the first Friday of the pandemic hitting us, I was able to do this live streamed event from my home studio and make money out of it, because it's attached to what they call a paywall.
Yeah.
At the time of this, when it all started in March last year, BeatStream was the only live music streaming app in the world that was attached to a paywall, because nobody else had developed it. I think nobody else had seen the potential market for it. So now where we are now is that at this moment in time, BeatStream is being used by artists all over the world to do live events, and they're making money out of it. You know, it might not be a lot, it might just be a couple $100 quid an event or whatever, but it's up and running, and we're in the process now of telling the world about it and developing it to the next stage. Because even beyond the lockdown and beyond the pandemic, I think people are getting a taste now for doing stuff online, because you're not having to get a taxi into town and, you know, get sweated on by, you know, some silly urban next. up and down to, you know, your favourite band or whatever. So even though that we all want that to come back, I think the online stuff that a lot of people have started will carry on. You know, and our Disco Rescue that we do Friday nights, we're going to carry that on as long as we can.
See, with a lot done on the COVID as well, a lot of people will be a bit wary about going to gigs. And of course, this will give an opportunity not to totally miss out on it. So it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, it's just
a great concept.
None of us saw the pandemic coming, but it was, and we all wish it hadn't come along, but this little thing that's been on my back burner for years and years is suddenly like a great vehicle for, not only for me to make, you know, a few £100 on a Friday night, but for bands like Slow Readers Club, you know, they can do a gig now. You know, they can get in the rehearsal room, do a gig. They don't have to do it with visuals. I know there are platforms out there to do a video, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, but most of them, as far as I know, are still not attached to a paywall. So what a lot of people have been doing, they've been doing gigs, like DJ gigs, or people have been doing, you know, live performances on Facebook Live, saying, go to me GoFundMe page, leave me some money. And they generally don't, do they? So,
we've had that problem.
Yeah. And a lot of it isn't people being tight. It's people watching it thinking, yeah, I'll do that in a minute. And you don't get around to it. But that's, you know, the beat stream thing has been a bit of an awakening, really, seeing that something that I've been working on alongside all my other things that people know about. This little thing that's invisible in the background is suddenly.
So let's just talk about your music for a second. So how did the Inspirals come about? When did it start? What happened? Whose idea was it? That kind of thing?
Well, what happened was when punk happened in 1976, that was my awakening in terms of, you know, my career started in December 76 when I saw the Sex Pistols in Collyhurst at the Electric Circus. So it was the second time they came to Manchester in 76. The first time was the famous Leicester Free Trade Hall gig, which everybody says they were at, but they weren't. I wasn't.
They were there. Yeah.
I think there was 40 people there apparently. But when
was you there, Owen?
I wasn't. No, I was only 7 in 76. So I remember it being a very warm summer.
It was a warm summer, wasn't it? Because I had a moped. I remember how beautiful it was being a moped rider. Me and my mate had just got our first mopeds, and beautiful summer that one. It went on forever.
Well, I remember having third-degree burns with being ginger, so, you know.
Strawberry blonde.
No, I am now in my 50s. I never used to.
But yeah, seeing the Sex Pistols and the old punk thing, that's when I thought then education just went out the window, because I was at art college in Rochdale, what is now Otwood Hall College.
Yeah. And
the plan was I was going to go on to university to do a diploma in art, whatever they call it, a degree in art, and then maybe become a teacher, maybe become a bloody sculptor or whatever. And it was just like seeing the punk things, like, that's what I'm going to do now. Everything can just go out the window now. I was going to say everything can fuck off then, but that's just like, that's what I'm going to do. You know, working class kids making music with, you know, not a lot of musical skill really. When I saw that night, it was the Buzzcocks, Johnny Thunder's Heartbreakers, The Clash, and Sex Pistols were on the bill. That was £1.20 to see all that.
Wow.
And a lot of the people I was watching on stage were working class kids like me, you know, not great bass players, not great guitarists, but they were doing something, and it
knocking the tune out, yeah.
So I dropped out of education and started a little shit job in Oldham at Stockwell's sheet metal factory. I say it was a shit job. It was shit. My experience of it was shit, but at least they employed me and paid me some decent money, and that gave me the money that I needed to start buying musical equipment and, you know, getting to gigs. And I started hanging around with bands in Oldham and just learning about what goes on within a band and how you put a gig on. You know,
did you play keyboards at this point? Had you already had lessons?
No, I had no desire to whatsoever. I always wanted to be a singer. I always fancied being, like, you know, a rock and roller. Elvis. I wanted to be Elvis, simple as that. So 77, 78, I was hanging out with these bands in Oldham, and, you know, building up my knowledge really of local band sort of culture, you know, and you know, the life of a musician, and, you know, how to set up a guitar, how to tune a guitar. Started doing all this business. And then eventually that led to me setting up a little recording studio. I worked in Ashton-under-Lyne at the Guidebridge Mill, and it was a furniture business, and I was involved with that. Became a company director of it at 21 because I was a grafter. I ended up being given a chunk of the company. Anyway, so I started building a little studio in the Guidebridge Mill on the ground floor. Took some rooms that weren't being used and made them into a little recording studio. 4-track cassette-based recording studio, very basic. And I used to let bands rehearse in there at nights for like £3 an hour or whatever it was. So I had I was writing the local band scene, and all the local bands in Oldham and Ashton. And then I got a call one day from this lad saying, I've got a band, we want to come and record a demo in your place. We call the Spiral Carpets. Can you sort it out for us? So that was in, I think probably 85, early 86, the first time they came down. And I recorded a demo for them, 3 or 4 songs. And I thought, I like the sound of this band because they were punk. There was no keyboards involved. It was a punk band, 4-piece, drums, bass, guitar, vocals, very noisy guitar, very noisy vocals. And I'm listening to it thinking, if I could get my electric organ into that, because I had a 60s Farfisa compact duo organ, which I've still got. And I just thought in my head, if that band gets that organ in there, it's going to sound like a proper psychedelic garage band from 1960, whatever. So they came down again for another recording session, and I recorded another demo for them. And I think after that, I just said to Graham, look, I've got this idea. How about I bring this organ in? Because I think if we come together, it'll sound like Jefferson Airplane and some of the Doors. Even though it's punk, it was like they had that 60s edge to it. And we tried it one night. It was a Monday night, if I remember right. They just dragged the organ into the rehearsal room and joined in, and that was it. It was right, and it started from there. So the band existed before me. I think the name in Spiral Carpets started in 1984, I think, when they first put the name on it, Graham and Steve. But it's very much a garage band, as in they didn't really do gigs. They were just played in the garage, the dad's garage occasionally. Then grew from there. But I think once I joined and got in there, it just seemed like everything happened quite fast. You know what I mean? It was like we started doing gigs in Oldham. I remember doing the Mere and Fall, Primrose Bank. I think that was my first gig that I did. I think it's like a curry house now, isn't it?
It is a curry house, you're right.
Yeah. So that was my first gig with the Inspirals, was in that building. And then we did other places like, oh God, where else did we play in Oldham? The Bridgewater on Manchester Road. Yep. Which has now been demolished and rebuilt. But,
that's right, yeah.
So a lot of pub gigs in Oldham, and you could just feel it, that the excitement we were creating. I'm talking like 86, 87 here. There's something happening, and there's nobody else doing what we were doing here, like that psychedelic sort of 60s garage pop. And it seemed like every time we stepped out the door, it was all a bit bigger. And then next week, we started doing gigs in Manchester, and we did a little place called Piero's. And then next time we were playing, the Boardwalk or whatever. Everything got bigger every time we stepped out.
So was it the closer you got to Manchester city centre, the bigger things got, and the press was sort of getting hold of it, and it was just exploding?
Yeah, not so much the press at that point. The local press, like we'd have a piece in the Oldham Chronicle. I think Mark Hodkinson, who used to do the music page in the Oldham Chron back then. Yeah. He was in a band called the Monkey Run. He was a friend of mine, and he was giving us some really nice press. And then Manchester Evening News, Mick Middles, I think at the time. Terry Christian probably first. Yeah. But yeah, it just felt like locally we knew we were creating waves, and we knew that our gigs, we could feel how good we were at what we were doing. You felt it. It was, to say that none of us were that skilled as musicians. We'd come off stage and be like, "Fucking hell, that was incredible." You know what I mean? And we just built it from there, and then, started putting our feelers out in the Manchester music scene, meeting bigger people there, giving tapes out to, the guy that managed the International One, Gareth. It's 2 guys, Gareth and Matthew. They put us on there, giving us a decent support. We're getting really good supports at the Boardwalk. Every time a good band was in town, we'd get a call off Colin Sinclair, who owned the Boardwalk. Yeah. Do you want to come and support Zodiac Mindwarp? Do you want to come and support Crazy Head? These were like the cool bands. Wow. That
Zodiac Mindwarp had a love reaction. They were brilliant.
Yeah. Doctor and the Medics.
Yeah.
I think we supported more bands at the Boardwalk than any other band. I think we played there more times than anybody. Maybe Oasis, they might have just done 1 or 2 gigs more than us because they played there a lot because they were rehearsing. Have you heard of Oasis?
No.
They're shit. No, they're good, great band.
Right, let me ask you a question. Excuse me. So
it's been down to Oasis, I'll tell you.
I don't know whether I've made this up or whether I've read it somewhere, but did the Inspiral Carpets back in the day used to pass the time of day by chucking stones at one of the Gallaghers when they were a security guard or something like that in a porter cabin?
Yeah, that sounds quite malicious, but what it was.
Did it happen? Yes.
Yeah, on one occasion, yeah. Yeah, so what happened was we were quite well established at that point. So I'm guessing this would be like 1990 or probably 1990, not maybe 91. But and Noel was working with us. He was our roadie, you know, famously. He worked for us for like 4 years as our roadie, travelled the world with us. And when I say he was our roadie, he wasn't just setting our gear up at gigs. He was with us day in, day out.
Right.
You know what I mean? If we were rehearsing, he'd be with us. If we were in the office, he'd be with us. If we were going out for a record company meal, he'd be with us. We took him everywhere.
Yeah.
So Noel was part of the gang. And I think it was Melody Maker that came into Manchester to interview us for a big piece. And it was a front cover piece. We're on the front cover of it. And the picture, if you ever see it on the internet, is us sat on these massive yellow plastic drainage pipes. And that was taken in Manchester near the boardwalk. There used to be a British Gas storage yard. And it's now roughly where Home is now, that Home Theatre and the Tiffin, what was called the Tiffin Indian Restaurant.
No idea.
Right, it's right at the end of the street where the boardwalk is. If you come up towards where the Ascender used to be, at the end of the boardwalk street, right opposite, it was a British Gas storage yard.
Right.
And that Noel, when he first met us and auditioned to be our singer, and we said we don't like the sound of your voice, but we like you, come and work with us. His job until that moment was working for British Gas. He worked in that storage yard as a watchman, making sure that people didn't nick out. By the time the Melody Maker interviewed us, that job had been taken over by Noel's little brother, Liam. So Liam's sat there all day for whatever wage they were giving him, British Gas, just making sure that nobody nicked out. And in that yard, there was the big yellow pipes. There was mountains of like gravel and tarmac and all sorts of, you know, British Gas related stuff. So we suggested doing a photo shoot for Melody Maker in this yard. And we went up, and I remember, I don't know what date it was, but I'll probably find it in my diary. Liam sat in his little shed. It was one of them little huts, so not a shed big enough for more than one person. It was just a little hut. He sat there. He had his ghetto blaster on, playing Stone Roses, and behind him was a Stone Roses poster out the NME. You know, they used to do like censored.
Yeah.
And he had
the good old days
poster. He had the ghetto blaster playing whatever, and he sat there like that, like looking all beautiful. Before he was a rock star, obviously. I mean, at this point, he's not even in Oasis at this point. It must have been 1990, I'm guessing. And it was just, so while we were having the photo shoot on the pipes, Liam still sat in his little box, and we were picking up these big white stones that they use like side of railways on. Yeah. And like throwing them onto his roof. So his life wasn't in danger, but it was just funny that we're just winding him up. You know what I mean?
And did he get some repercussion from him?
Who got the last laugh?
I know. Well, mate, you've had a hell of a life, though, haven't you? You can't take that away from anybody.
No. Very colourful.
I've had a good. I'm happy, mate. I'm happy. I mean,
yeah. And that's what it's all about, mate, isn't it? You know,
I've been on my arse a few times. You know, I don't mind admitting that, and I've always come out of it all right. And you know, what's happened over the last 12 months has been, you know, once again, it's been financially devastating. Been there before. It's been grounding. I've been there before. You know, when you get back down to the real world and that, you know. Yeah. But whenever I've been through those proper troughs, I've always come out of it in a better place, and I feel like that's happening again now. I feel that everything I've learned in the last 12 months about new income streams to replace the DJ work. So it's little things like, you know, setting up a merchandise where you can get this shit, you know. Yeah, boonarmy.com.
Boonarmy. You're not selling a mini, are you, by any chance?
I knew that would come in. I knew that would come in.
It's good to see.
And this is like quite, I don't know how this sounds coming from somebody with my background and what people expect me to position in, but I've been in a position where I've had to replace that DJ work. I still need to pay the mortgage. We've got bills to pay. We've got kids to feed. We homeschool our kids. You know, we've been doing that for 8 years. So I can't just sit on my arse and wait for the DJ work to come back, because it might not do. And if it does come back, I might not want to be out there getting jumped on by sweaty blokes every night. You know what I mean? After what we've been through. So I've been in a position where I've been developing 4 new income streams. So Shopify merchandise site, we can buy Boonarmy t-shirts and that. I've been selling my art through Etsy. So when I say art, I mean pictures of cows and whatever else people want.
Like Coolers milk.
Yeah, bespoke stuff like that. And that's gone through the roof. People have been loving that. The other one is the Disco Rescue on Beat Stream, which, again, nice little extra bit of income. And then the latest one is Patreon, which is where I'm making music again. So I'm making new music. and sharing it with the community, almost like a crowdfunding sort of principle, where the people that are subscribing on a monthly basis are paying me, money to keep being creative, which is beautiful, really. So it's like, 30 years ago, that would have been a record deal and a fan club. And now it's all rolled into one thing called Patreon. And there's no middlemen. I write a song today, record it tomorrow. By tomorrow night, it can be with my patrons and
earning money, putting money in the bank. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that's the best thing that's happened. The amount of money that I've taken away, my actual bookings that were in my diary that have gone, it's devastating when I think about it. And if somebody had told me a year ago, you're about to lose all that, there's no way I would have thought I could have got through it.
The thing is, Clint, you're still here, and you know what? You need to, every day you wake up, you need to count your blessings for your family and for your friends.
Yeah.
That's
what I'm saying. It's like I had the choice of licking my wounds and shouting about, what a shit situation this is on, social media. I didn't. I just got on with beavering away, creating the extra bit of money we needed as a family.
Yeah.
And more importantly, getting back to being a musician, because for 20 years, since Clint Boon Experience stopped, that was my band I had after the Inspirals.
Yeah.
Since that stopped in 2000, I got totally distracted, if you like, by being a radio presenter and being a club DJ. So playing other people's records day in, day out, night in, night out. And now I'm in a position where, for the first time in years, I'm making new music and getting it out there again. And that's it's a great positive, you know what I mean?
I was actually into, I'm going to be down with the cool kids here and say CBX, right?
You and 8 others, Al. You and 8 others.
9.
I mean, you alluded to him earlier on about Elvis Presley. You wanted to be Elvis Presley. But Presley on Oldham Street. Yeah. I adore that track. White No Sugar. I just think they're all fantastic. But for me, it's the fact that you're a local lad and you've come good. We asked a load of questions on social media before we come here, and we've got about 6 minutes left because you just talked for Britain. You've never been any different. All right, so I'm going to read through these as quick as I can. What's your breakfast butty of choice? Says Mark. And do you like Spam?
You know what? We had Spam. Me and my wife. We got talking about Spam probably about 3 or 4 months ago, and we got some in and had it and liked it. Very salty, innit? I'd forgotten how salty it was.
Processed, didn't it, mate?
Kids liked it as well, but
Spam with bacon.
Sorry, say again.
You buy Spam with bacon in. Spot on.
Right, okay. What's it called that then? Is it Spacon?
It's called Spam with added bacon. That's all it is.
It's bacon. Or Spam.
It's bacon.
Right, I'll try it, but no, going back to the favourite. You mean like if I went to an egg and bacon butty shop?
If you go to a butty shop on corner, what do you have?
It'd be egg and bacon with brown sauce.
Egg and bacon. So you're quite conventional. Like you see, as I've got older, I've he goes for a full English every morning, right?
That's not butty, is it? That's not butty, that, is it?
No, I've cheese and toast. We'll leave the house, mate, at 6.
Is that what you do?
Yeah,
I have to have bacon, lettuce, and tomato. I'm quite sophisticated.
Yeah, no, I like them.
Yeah,
I like them. But I think breakfast. Yeah, but BLT in it.
Yeah,
that's the one in it.
Yeah, I think first thing in the morning, I do like egg and bacon with brown sauce. I like red sauce, but if there's an egg involved, I always have brown sauce.
Do you ever do red and brown together? No, it's the future. Don't slag me off. I'm telling you.
Jackie does that. Jackie has that.
How do you do it, Al? You don't spiral them together, do you?
Yeah. Please tell me you've had that.
No.
Right, I'm going to drop some off at your house in the morning. That's it.
I'll definitely try it. So you get your red sauce, you get your brown sauce.
Yeah.
You mash them up.
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
It's a little bit like, I suppose it's a little bit like barbecue.
See, I like a bit of piccalilli on my bacon.
No, that's rank.
Yeah, no, a bit of piccalilli, love it.
That's because you're a ginger. All gingers are weird.
Yeah.
Ginger from Longside.
Will you make another guest appearance at the next March of the Mods, says Jackie?
Yes, definitely.
Right, we'll move on from that.
It's a great thing that they're doing, and it's all through great cause. And I miss those events. I do. I think I alluded to it earlier about I'm not missing being jumped on by sweaty blokes.
Sweaty blokes, yeah.
But I am missing that feeling of when I walk out on, I do some pretty big gigs as part of my DJ, calendar. I'm walking out on stage in front of a few thousand people, and that,
Yeah.
And then you come to put the first record on and bang, and it's like.
Mate, I have the same thing. I walk out on a stage and I see your mum staring at me, and it's just like, yes.
And a bloke with a dog.
And a bloke with a dog, with cap on.
Yeah.
Who are your top 3 Manchester bands, says Darren?
Manchester as in back in the day?
Yep.
Quickfire, Happy Mondays, I thought were just epic. And I was jealous of how good they were. Trying to make me... Probably James, I just thought were incredible.
Oh,
wow. How that voice.
Right.
Because Tim Boon just an amazing performer.
Yeah, well, I get that. I just didn't see that coming, though.
Yeah, I mean, I love The Fall, but they're not Manchester. I love Doves, but they're not Manchester. Yeah. World of Twist, let's say World of Twist.
Right.
Like they were just probably the most original band of that era. They were brought into the Manchester thing, but World of Twist were like Pulp before Pulp. It was like Jarvis Cocker. Tony Ogden, the singer, was like Jarvis Cocker before Jarvis
Cocker was invented. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think Jarvis Cocker is actually, he's actually admitted that he did see World of Twist back in the day. So I'm sure if you see Tony Ogden
there,
check Tony Ogden out on videos, World of Twist, and then you'll see what I mean. But I had the pleasure of seeing them a few times, and they were just amazing and a brilliant keyboard player. And so they were great. Just nothing like the other Manchester bands, but I'd definitely put them in the top 3.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, is it true you used to sail on the swamp on George Street as well? Jill's asked that one in a tin bath.
No, but I'll tell you, I don't know if that sounds like a joke one, doesn't it? But what we did do, not George Street. I don't remember that. I might have done, but I think I left George Street or Linney Lane when I was 4.
That's where Buckstone's Trailers used to be, wasn't it? That was Buckstone's Bodies was on there or something.
And the Dodgem place. What was the Dodgem place called on Linney Lane?
I don't remember that.
Right. Yeah, there's a Dodgem place. As you're coming from the middle of shore on Linney Lane, you go over Humpback Bridge.
That's right, you do.
Just before that on your left, Whittaker Brothers, it was called.
Oh, no, it's still there, Whittaker Brothers.
Still there. They used to make Dodgems. They still make arcade games, don't they?
Wow, I didn't know that.
What we did do, what she might be thinking of, was when we moved to A Side, we moved into our corner shop.
Yeah.
1964. So over the next few years, there was a lodge. There was an old mill site there, and the lodge was still in position. A lodge full of water.
Yeah.
And on it was all these big, we used to call them Weetabixes. So they're like these massive, if you imagine like a railway sleeper, but made out of white, shredded wood, but weird, like a giant Weetabix. Yeah. And we used to make rafts out of those and sail on the lodge. And you'd have a massive long stick to push. And you're talking like, I was probably 8, 9 years old. There's older lads there as well. And luckily, nobody ever went in. Nobody fell in. But when I think back to that, that would have been instant death, because it's, I've never been a good swimmer. I've got a blue float on top of all shit. But maybe that's what she's on about. But I don't remember the Tim Bath thing.
No.
What about in Spiral Carpets gigging again? I mean, it's sad about Craig. But do you think
the door's still open? Yeah. We're still very. I get asked this a lot, and we're still a business very much in terms of we get asked almost on a weekly basis, can we use one of your songs on this album or in this advert or whatever? So we're still in touch. It's not like it's over.
Yeah.
And I personally think there's no talk of gigs yet, but I personally think there'll come a point when we'll get that call or somebody in the band will say, "Is this the right time?" I'm still not feeling it yet without Craig. Obviously I'm making.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like having done 30 years with him drumming behind me. And him only being 14 when I first met him. When he first joined the band,
he was the youngest. Was he the youngest lad? I think in the band, wasn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was 12 years younger than me, so he was 14 when we joined. He's still there. Just something.
Yeah.
He's still. So it's just if we'd have been at our peak when Craig died, or if we'd have been a full-time band, which we weren't, we're still very much like it's like a real. It was like having a great vintage car that we just used to get out occasionally and go and have fun with, until 2015 or whatever. So what I'm saying, if we're a full-time band that we're employing, 20 or 30 people year in, year out, with management and agents and roadie, we might have carried on. We might have done something about it by now. But I think it's like, to me, it was like there's never been a better time to put an underline it, put a full stop to it and say, that's probably...
Are the Spiral Carpets still better looking than Take That? That's from Louise.
That makes me it makes it sound like we've probably said we are better looking at some point in the past.
I can hear you saying it. I can hear you saying it right now.
In reality, they're good looking lads, aren't they? Take that. You know what I mean? You can't argue, especially the other two, Jason and Howard. You know what I mean?
The two that have cleared off.
Well, yeah.
No, Howard's still in it.
Oh yeah.
Jason's gone.
Take right. Let's look at. I mean, right in the world of modelling, they'd do all right, and we'd have fucking no chance, would we? You know what I mean? Having said that, I did a bit of modelling for Pretty Green last year. Did you see that?
Did you really? No, I didn't.
Just a little bit. I've got, I'm a friend of the brand, so they look after me.
Right.
Is that throwing stones?
Chucking stones at the owner. Is that what it was?
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story about Liam, about Pretty Green before we go. The last time I interviewed him, I went down to London a couple of years ago. And it was a little production studio somewhere on Marylebone Road, I think it was.
Right.
And as I pulled up in the taxi, he was outside the studio. He'd already arrived, and he was outside having a smoke or whatever. And as I got out and I walked towards him, I had this Parker on, and I'm walking like, hey, and he said, I like that Parker, man. Where's that from? So it's one of yours, isn't it?
It's one of
No one tells me fucking anything anymore.
I've got to ask you the question because this is something that's always. So one of the girls that worked at the Revolution used to hang about with them when they were sort of younger, and I never really had time for them. I thought they were fabulous live. I took my daughter to see them down at the City of Manchester Stadium and one thing and another, and I always thought that Noel was probably the more the better one that I would get along with, And she went, "Oh no, Liam is just such a nice guy, it's ridiculous." Yeah. What about you? Have you got it's like having a favorite kid, isn't it? But have you got a favorite Gallagher?
Not really. I mean, I love them both for different reasons. Well, it's like Noel was for 4 years. He was like a brother. You know what I mean? It was like we traveled the world together. There's pictures of me and him in bed together when we used to share a bed on. In the early days when we had no money. And he was our sidekick, our helper, our roadie, our mate. So we saw the world together for 4 years, before he split to do Oasis. So how can I not love him intensely for that? And we still get on great now, when we do see each other. Liam is he's nothing like Noel. He's a real soft, loving soul that people have only just seen in the last few years. Like back in the day when he was nutting everybody and spitting and all that, it was like, People didn't see the real Liam. I knew it because I'd seen it right at the beginning before he was in Oasis.
Yeah,
when we used to throw stones at him. So I love Liam I love him equally. You know what I mean? It's like I could happily. I always judge it with somebody like, could you go on holiday with them for 2 weeks? You know what I mean?
Yes, you could.
I could with either of them. Yeah, probably not both of them together. That wouldn't be much cop, would it, at the moment?
Be good to watch though.
Why don't they get on though? I mean, it's such a. I've often thought, behind closed doors, are they secretly always on the phone to each other, and are they just building up to that massive comeback?
I don't think they're doing that consciously. I don't think they are in touch. I mean, I think occasionally you'll see Liam, tweeting something that's along the lines of, I love you, our kid, or whatever. So I think there is that love still there. I think Liam is a proper stone in Noel's shoe. Right. That's a great analogy in terms of, how different they are. Noel keeps himself to himself pretty much, and Liam's out there. So I think I just think it's, a lot of brothers are like that, aren't they? I mean, we're fortunate. We've got 3 kids. Our 3 boys that are 10, 14 and 16. They're like that. They're just so close and beautiful with each other. But that's unusual. Most brothers do have a bit of bickering, don't they? And it's, it's more intense when there's millions of pounds being thrown about and, other stuff. It's like you do get that that friction, and that's what happened. And I believe, I'd put money, if I had 10,000 quid to bet, I would bet that they'll be back together within the next 2 years. That's how I feel about it. I think there'll come a point while Peggy's still alive, the mum, where Noel particular will say, right, let's get this done. Right. You know what I mean? Noel will be the one that'll make it happen when it's, when it fits in with what he's doing, and when he's ready, he'll do it.
And if that gig happens,
I tell you what, look at some of the bands that we're never going to get back together, like the Police. we're never going to get back together. And then one day Sting wakes up and says, right, let's make this happen.
Yeah.
Stone Roses, it happened with them.
Yeah.
You know, it went pretty much when Ian and it was at Manny's mum's funeral. You know, it was because I was there, stood next to him. It was Ian.
Is that right? It was you were all on the piss in a pub in Failsworth or something, or is that? Was that made up?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't the piss. It was the wake. It was the wake for Manny's mum. But right. in the crematorium, it was like I was stood there. You know, Manny was obviously towards the front with his family.
Yeah.
And Ian Brown and John Squire were stood at the right. We were right at the back door, and they were, you know, they were acknowledging each other. They were chatting away. It's the first time they'd been in the same company for I don't know what figure it was, 11 years or something. I can't remember, but it was obvious in that moment that was it. Now the guards are down. They're acknowledging each other. They're being civil. There's no issues, and I knew
it was going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes I know it's sad, but it takes something like that for you to sort of get a grip on life and think, well, hang on, it's just too short. Yeah. We've got something here. Let's make the most of it.
Peggy Gallagher's still there, and she's still, you know, a lovely woman, and you know, she'd love to see the boys. I mean, it'd be nice to come together as brothers, first of all, wouldn't it? Like, you know, as brothers that have got kids, that some of the kids have probably never met each other's kids. I don't know what they're up to, but it'd be great to see them coming together as brothers initially, and then obviously the band.
Is Peggy like Mrs. Brown, you know, with the boys? Does she put them in the place?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. She actually, I've heard her saying about banging their heads together. You know what I mean? Like, if it was up to her, she'd bang their heads together and sort it out.
And she'd do it.
Yeah.
Clint, listen, we've got to finish off, but what have we got for the next sort of 12, 18 months? What's happening going forward? I know Friday night, we've got this gig coming up again, haven't we?
Yeah, Friday nights are going to carry on. I might end up moving it to another night of the week if I start getting actual bookings on Friday night. Me personally, my priority is building this Patreon thing, keep putting that music out, new music, and then eventually get that onto Bandcamp or whatever in the next few months and start selling it, you know, on CDs, vinyl, etc. So I'm focusing on my own music again, really, rather than playing other people's music all the time. I'm still doing the radio. I'm still on XS, you know, 6 days a week, and that's a nice little gig. You know, I'm fortunate that survived. It nearly closed down, didn't it? 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So in March, when we went into that first lockdown in March, I was losing my radio gig and all my DJ work. That was 100% of my income. So
mate, you just do what we did, and I just pilfered the radio station. You know, as soon as I heard that, were it right in there. We're pulling stuff off the wall and everything.
I can see it. I can see all the tiles, you know, acoustic tiles. They look good in blue, don't they?
Yeah. I think you still got the Bill Tammy plaque in there as well somewhere. The Bill Tammy plaque, yeah.
What do you need? I can get anything for you, mate, if you ask nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's from Oldham, isn't it? That's what
lad, born and bred, strong in arm, thick in head. It's been an absolute pleasure. Will you do us a favour? Will you come on again for us?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, let's do an update in a few months and see where we're up to.
Brilliant stuff, yeah.
I'll get the cans in next time, and you know, I can pass it through to Owen, and Owen can pass them down to you. And
I must apologise, well, because it's like I'm not famous for San Miguel, am I? But I'm usually with the red stripe in my hand. But this was all we could get in the off license tonight.
Needs must.
Yeah, San Miguel. We call him Mr. Miguel.
Mr. Miguel.
Mr. That's it. Got to get through. And I'm on the gin, vodka and lemonade for the next bit. I've got to do a Zoom quiz now, a pop quiz with Alan Leach out of Shed 7.
Really?
He set up a business a few years ago, really industrial lad, Alan, and he set up speedquizzing.com a few years ago. And it's obviously taken off during the lockdown. People are just using it. He's like syndicating it out. And so we're doing a little celebrity quiz in a minute. Me with Tom out of Shed 7, Danny out of Embrace, Mark Morris out of the Blue Tones, all getting online and doing a little celebrity quiz on Zoom.
So I went to see you when you supported Shed 7 at the Academy a couple of years ago.
That was our last tour, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely fantastic.
It's a good little bill, that. Because their first proper UK tour, Shed 7, was supporting us. They were pretty unknown.
How excited to
bonded like that from day one, and we've been close friends ever since, haven't we? Brilliant. I played on 2 records. They did She Left Me on Friday. I played on that. And then the one that came after it, Devil in Your Shoes, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. So I did Top of the Pops when Shed 7 did Top of the Pops with She Left Me on Friday. Who's there on keyboards?
I'm on YouTube for that one in a minute, believe
Right.
Right, mate. Listen, it's been fantastic. Just my love to the family, of course.
Brilliant. We'll see you again soon.
From one thing and another, and expect a phone call or phone in the next couple of days because we're wanting some names and numbers out your diary for people.
Yeah, the Gallagher's and all that.
No problem.
Get us a nice one though, yeah.
Yeah, will do.
Who's that, the mum?
Keep up the great work as well.
All right.
Should get my mum on.
We'll do that.
Yeah, we will. Yeah.
In fact, we might give her a ring later on and just get her on the end of this one now. So you're right, your place.
Yeah, that's good. Well, lots of love to you both, and keep
right,
up
buddy.
the great work.
You keep well.
Cheers, Clint.
Thanks very much, Clint.
Take care, mate.
See you later,
Boon
buddy.
Army.
Boon Army. I still want that mini.
Don't sit around, you're gonna put it on your waistline. Don't stand alone in these strangest of times. There's no explaining the things that might happen. There's now a new home for technology in fashion. She heard it from someone in Hong Kong who read it on a screen in Beijing. It was posted on a site in Seattle. And me, I read it on the back of a cigarette packet and it said, "Election beats electrocution. This is the new revolution." It's taking me way high. I like it white with no sugar. When I ride on the highway. She said she was looking for a basic introduction, and that creation is an anagram of reaction. Said she was a user, IBM out of South Africa. I was a receiver in a cafe bar in Manchester. I replied that boredom is an anagram of bedroom and that it's so good to see kids on the streets again. The only people I don't wish to meet are singing at the pigeons in Senile Street, and that yes, this is a new revolution. The man on the Mac in Macedonia hits on the girl with the fully loaded PC in DC. This is definitely a new revolution. It's taking me way high. I like it white with no sugar. When I ride on the highway. Ooh. It's taking me way high. I guess I'll just scoot along to Dry or Atlas or Dukes of 92. Open up a new website and maybe call it Mr. Boon, play that tune. Groovy mama, groovy.